Hello NFL fans and welcome back to the Wall of NFL. In this video today, I'm going to be giving my 1-minute recaps of every game from Sunday's Week 1 NFL action. The first game I'm going to be talking about today is going to be the Jaguars at the Texans. The Jaguars had a real hard game and it was pretty baptism by fire for Urban Meyer, the head coach, and Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback. Whilst Trevor Lawrence did have a pretty decent stat line, he also had 3 interceptions, which can't be good. And if you're turning the ball over that many times, and also if you're throwing that many times, it can't be good for the offense. You need to have a little bit more balance, and they pretty much abandoned the run, the Jaguars. And they have a pretty good running back, James Robinson, that they almost just ignored. And if they'd had a bit of balance on offense, maybe they'd have done a bit better. The Texans were actually pretty decent yesterday, and I've got to say, I was pretty surprised the fact that they won the game. I predicted them to go 0-17 and the Jaguars to win this one. But Tyrod Taylor actually played pretty lights out. He must have watched Deshaun Watson last year and went, maybe I can do a bit of that. All eyes on the LA Chargers versus the Washington football team were focused on the defensive rookie of the year from last year, Chase Young, against the offensive rookie of the year from last year, Justin Herbert. It was a real tale of two teams that were very defensive and they didn't quite show a lot of offensive explosivity until that final fourth quarter when the Chargers got the go-ahead touchdown from a Justin Herbert pass to Williams, the wide receiver. I think that Chase Young and that Washington football defense pretty much dominated most of the game, but I think in the end, Justin Herbert is just so good, so they were able to come out on top. I think that keeping them down to only 20 points though, I think the football team really should have won that game considering, but the fact that Ryan Fitzpatrick, their quarterback, got injured and leaving Heineke to rescue the game, I'm not sure that's a recipe for success every game, but they might have to do it for the next few weeks after the injury. The biggest story coming out of the Seahawks at the Colts game has got to be Russell Wilson and his 4 touchdowns. Russell Wilson played a really great game, getting 250 yards plus as well, and he did a really great job at helping that offense to churn because without Russell Wilson, with that incredible deep pass, the Seahawks didn't really offer an awful lot. So if the Seahawks fans are looking to be worried about something, I think that those short plays, there's not a whole lot of them going on there, so I would be worried about that. However, I think the Seahawks overall had a really good game and the defensive line and the whole defense really for the Seahawks played really well and stopped Carson Wentz from doing anything. Despite Wentz having no interceptions, I think that the amount of times he got hit really shows that the Seahawks have got a good defense and they're one of the top NFC contenders for this year. The Colts really need to fix up and Wentz needs a lot more help from the offensive line and wide receivers as well. Robbie Anderson and Sam Darnold couldn't have wanted this game to go any differently. They, of course, were ex-Jets, and now playing for the Panthers, this game was called the Double Revenge Game. Of course, Sam Darnold and Robbie Anderson connected in the end zone for a 57-yard touchdown pass, and of course, they did the Jets celebration, sticking their arms out, looking like a plane. Anyway, Zach Wilson really needs to improve. He was throwing for a whole lot of incompletions, and to top it all off, they lost Mekhi Becton, one of their best offensive linemen, but Corey Davis was only the only other guy on the field who was trying to help out Zach Wilson. In the end, they only got 2 touchdowns, and it was quite late on into the game where the Panthers had kind of gone and pretty much decided it already. I've got to say, Robert Saleh's defense was pretty decent, but not quite good enough to stop. Well, I think it was good enough to stop the Panthers, but the Jets' offense really needs to improve for the future. The Vikings at the Bengals was the closest game of the weekend, and the Bengals ended up winning 27-24 with a game-winning field goal as time expired in overtime. You couldn't win it in any more of a dramatic way. In fact, Joe Burrow had a brilliant game. He had 74% completion percentage, had almost 300 yards, and he connected really well with rookie teammate Ja'Marr Chase. He had 101 yards and a touchdown and really showed what the value is in getting a wide receiver high up in the draft. Ja'Marr Chase had a lot of problems with drops in preseason and training camp, but today he was so much better and didn't drop a single pass and was fantastic. Having T. Higgins on one side and Jamar Chase on the other, and also having Joe Mixon in the backfield along with a brand new offensive line, I think it really showed that the Bengals now had a lot of balance, and running the ball and throwing it, they were very even in terms of their offensive output, and I think that was really the key to success. The Vikings need to lean on Dalvin Cook more if they're going to succeed, but they did get pretty close with their comeback. The Titans had a really bad game against the Cardinals this weekend. The Cardinals ended up winning 38-13, and Jones got a massive 5 sacks against Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill was really getting beaten up all over the place. Adding JJ Watt clearly has meant that Chandler Jones gets a lot more love on that defensive line, and he is completely wrecking games if you ask me. Well, so far in this season, after one game. Kyler Murray also looked like he was playing mad, and he was scrambling around and he was throwing the ball really accurately and had a great game, I've got to say. DeAndre Hopkins as well, scoring 2 touchdowns, was fantastic. The Titans, I thought they were going to be a lot better offensively this year. Julio Jones really looked out of sorts and didn't know what he was doing in that new offense. And Derrick Henry barely carried the ball more than 10 yards this game. I know that around in the third quarter, he only had about 2 yards, I think it was. But yeah, the Titans really need to improve. I thought the 49ers were going to have their first blowout of the season this weekend. And I kind of think that they did, even though the scoreline doesn't suggest it. The Lions ended up only 8 points behind the 49ers. But in the first half, the 49ers went completely off on the Lions, and they think they scored 31 points on them, which was just ridiculous. The Lions didn't really have much of an answer to the 49ers until kind of garbage time at the end of the game, when there was no hope for the Lions. That was the only time that they were really scoring points. Deebo Samuel had an amazing game with 189 yards and a touchdown, and Eli Mitchell, had a good game as well with over 100 yards rushing once Mostert went down injured. And it was also good to see Trey Lance get a touchdown as well. The Lions, gosh, they are bad. The Steelers at the Bills was a pretty good game in the end. It was very competitive and low scoring, but I think it was good because it was still high quality. Both teams' defenses were playing really well, especially the Steelers holding the Bills to only 3 points at halftime. Josh Allen wasn't really able to find Stephon Diggs, and they was kind of sputtering on offense. So well done to the Steelers and TJ Watt as well for his $119 million contract as well. And he showed that he was well worth it with the forced fumble as well. The Steelers didn't have a lot offensively, but the fact that the defense held the Bills to such a low-scoring team meant that they were able to get back into the game very easily, especially after the special teams blocked a punt and scored the touchdown there. I think the Eagles at the Falcons was going to end a completely opposite way. I thought the Falcons were going to be the one to kind of blow out the Eagles. I thought the Eagles were actually one of the worst teams in the league this year. And whilst I think the same about the Falcons, I do think the Falcons had enough to really beat the Eagles. I think that Matt Ryan not being able to score a single touchdown with the likes of Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts on the offense, I was really disappointed by the Falcons. But I was equally impressed by the Eagles. Jalen Hurts, I really didn't think he was going to have a good year. I thought he was quite an inaccurate quarterback and was quite prone to making a lot of turnovers. But this weekend, scoring 32 points, and he got 3 touchdowns as well. And he did really well, throwing for 264 yards as well. Hopefully he'll be able to do it again next week when they play against the 49ers, who are actually a good team. The Falcons losing to the Eagles, that is not a good sign for the Falcons, and Arthur Smith has a lot to improve on that team. The Browns absolutely did a fantastic job this weekend, and despite losing the game, I think they really showed the NFL that they were a top quality team. Beating the Chiefs in Arrowhead in September is almost impossible, and I think they actually showed it was possible. The Browns played out of their skin, especially Mayfield, Landry, Schwartz and Chubb on the offense. They did brilliantly. I think that coming out in their first drive of the game and scoring a touchdown and 2-point conversion to go up 8-0 was was a real statement of aggressiveness and the fact that they weren't there to lie down and let the Chiefs beat them. And I think with Kevin Stefanski, he was brilliant as a head coach, and having that mindset out of the gate was just brilliant. I think that the Chiefs in the second half, though, did really show their class, and Patrick Mahomes, potentially the best quarterback ever by the time his career is going to end, and Travis Kelce, one of the best tight ends ever, really came in clutch at the end and ended up helping the Chiefs to a win. So, time for the part of the video I have been waiting for, Saints versus the Packers. And the Packers ended up losing the game 3-38. I know I predicted the Packers to win, but I'm so glad I was wrong. Jameis Winston looked fantastic, and he's clearly no longer the guy that forces the ball into tight windows just to get intercepted. He's now the guy that picks his passes, has only 150 yards, but 5 touchdowns at that, and one massive one to Deontay Harris, who ended up going at 55 yards. And it's so exciting to now have a deep threat as well. The Saints defense was really dominant, and even when Marshawn Lattimore had to leave the game, our best cornerback, who last night as well signed a massive new contract, when he was out of the game, we still had Paulson Adebo, our rookie, who played lights out, who intercepted Rodgers in the red zone. Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones could do absolutely nothing, and it was all down to the Saints. And it was so good to see the Saints win, especially after Hurricane Ida has devastated New Orleans and they had to play in Jacksonville. And it was just so good to see them do so well. The Broncos at the Giants was actually a very dominant win for the Broncos, which I didn't expect. I thought it was going to be a very defensive game with both teams doing really well defensively because they have such strong defenses. But the Broncos, in the end, they made the Giants' defense look very average. And Teddy Bridgewater, who's not the best quarterback in the league, had a 77% completion percentage and distributed the ball really well to all of his weapons, which made it very difficult for the Giants' defense. Daniel Jones, the Giants' quarterback, also had a tricky game. He fumbled the ball as well, so those issues are still there that he needs to work on. They also need a lot more effort from their weapons and also the offensive line as well. And it just wasn't a good game for the Giants. They only scored 7 real points. The last 6 were kind of just garbage time points. So there's a lot that the Giants need to work on. All rookie quarterbacks took an L this weekend, and last to get theirs was Mac Jones. The Dolphins and the Patriots played a very competitive, very defensive game, and I think the difference really was the Dolphins' weapons on offense. Their wide receivers, Jalen Waddle and Devontae Parker, making key plays, getting a touchdown and a first down in the fourth quarter, which I remember was a great play by Devontae Parker, and Jalen Waddle's touchdown as well. They were both really key plays that ended up helping the Dolphins to the W. I think that if the Patriots are going to play really good teams later on in the season, they're going to have to do a bit better on offense, and they're going to have to find better guys to make those key plays when they need them. I think we all knew the Bears were going to lose to the Rams last night, but if you're picking out 1 or 2 positives for the Bears, David Montgomery was really good, running for over 100 yards and a touchdown with pretty much no help around him, so that's pretty impressive. Justin Fields was also in the game and scored a touchdown, and it's difficult to know whether he'll just have cameo appearances this year or whether he'll be worked into the lineup over time. It's a lot to think about for Matt Nagy. I think that the Rams defense was overall really good, and Matthew Stafford as well on offense. I think he had a good game, but it's difficult to know whether he had a good game or the wide receivers had an amazing game and just got open really easily, or whether McVay schemed them open, and whether, I don't know, I think it'll take a few more games to know whether it's Matthew Stafford being good or just the team around him and he's just making good, easy, wide open throws. But I think he's still better than Jared Goff, it's got to be said. Thank you guys so much for watching this video of my 1-minute recap of every game in the NFL this weekend. Please comment down below which games you watched and what you thought about the games that you watched as well. Please follow Wall of NFL on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter as well. And also go on wallofnfl.com to look at any exclusive articles and other content. And thank you guys so much for watching, and like and subscribe if you can as well.